With the recent release that Blue Protocol is shutting down and is never going to be released to the global market, it is turning off, it's shutting down its servers, development is stopping for the Japanese market, and the global market will never see this game released. And I think it's no secret, based off of just this information alone, that the live service game model, it either isn't what it used to be, or it's struggling as gamers have less time and money to enjoy them. Now, quality also is, I think, a key point here on the live service model. It also seems to have taken a hit, or gamers' expectations for what a good MMORPG should be have far exceeded the time, money, and resources needed to make the MMO of our dreams. A dream that we first saw and imagined what it'd look like 20 years from now. And well, 20 years have passed and they still look like the same games that we've been playing this whole time. Hello everyone, and welcome to another State of the Game, the MMORPG genre. MMORPGs are cursed. I once thought that we could be on a new potential golden age of the MMO, but ever since 2023, they dropped massive, awesome RPGs almost every single month. I think we've seen people kind of change up their gaming habits and actually start to ask the question, can I get something better than what I'm currently playing? And that's really what this channel is about, exploring the MMORPGs that we love and what we can do to make them better. And if I earn your subscription, sound off in the comments below. I'd love to welcome you here to the channel. And if you guys are needing a little bit of personal life boost and encouragement, hang out for the message of hope that we save for the end of these videos. Now, I do think one aspect of it, of this whole kerfuffle as we get older, is that we just actually have more on our plate as our hobby gets less and less of our free time. Now listen, I get it. I have 6 kids, so my free time to play games is actually very limited. So I already have to be hyper selective, and I also have to work a lot. 6 kids isn't a cheap endeavor by any means. Now the irony here is that I actually have the money to afford any game or hardware that I could possibly want. And recently I just got a new PC from Starforge Systems, the Asmongold company, and this isn't a sponsored post. I just was letting you know I absolutely love it. It's everything I wish my old Origin PC was, and this means that I'm enjoying games like PAX Day the way that they were meant to be played on a 4090 as I wait for the game to eventually drop on GeForce Now. Now, I know not everyone is in the same position that I am, because new PCs are great after all, but if you don't have the time to play games, well, they kind of just sit there. And that's one of the point of the many factors that have cursed the MMORPG. This is why the MMORPG gaming culture has shifted into prophesying some type of MMO messiah that will come and save the genre. Now, save is a really funny word in this case, namely because there are games out there that are doing just fine. World of Warcraft is launching its newest expansion, The War Within. Final Fantasy XIV just launched its expansion, Dawn Trail. ESO continues to pump out yearly expansions to their game every freaking year. Guild Wars 2 has gotten back into the expansion cycle, and it's exciting to see them continuing to put out really good content. New World Eternum is set to relaunch the game on console and PC this October. That's going to be something to watch to see if that's successful or not. And on the horizon, you have games like Ashes of Creation, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, even games like PAX Day, which are in early access right now. On top of that, I often hear gamers bring up things like Chrono Odyssey and even Crimson Desert, even though that's not an MMO, but a single-player action RPG, because it shares the same development as Black Desert Online. Yet, in this list of MMOs, the 2 most popular are over 15-year-old. They're 15-plus-year-old games. And I know that there are those out there who do not agree with my perception on the industry. That's more than fine. Opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got them, and they all stink at the end of the day. But I do see a few things working against this genre, and that's why I want a new MMO to have a massive level of success, because the risk here is, if this message becomes there is no reason to risk/invest 200+ million, maybe more, and 8+ years of development, there isn't going to be much to offer the MMO fan in the future. That's why I don't fault the MMO faithful that have hung their hat. They've pinned their hopes to a game like Ashes of Creation. When gamers evangelize and tell me that their hope rests in the Riot MMO that is on the horizon, which just went back into a full rework. When gamers tell me about Ghostcrawler and his new upcoming MMO, I'm excited that there are people willing to take this risk and to step into this world of MMORPGs, because if you do hit big, it's clear that gamers are going to stick with you for a very long time. And so the return on that investment, if you make it, is actually quite substantial, or at least it used to be. And that's one of the factors that is working against the MMO genre today. But Brian, insert future MMO here. This game is everything I ever wanted in an MMO. And maybe so. The best MMO in existence is the MMO that is ethereal. And because of that simple practice, the less that you know about an MMO means that every MMO that gets announced has that Messiah level complex. It has unimaginable expectations that get laid at its feet, and then as it becomes more in vision, as you learn more about it, it runs a critical risk of running up against the expectations that it never stated that it had, but you unintentionally put on it. Now, there's several factors here at play. Some of the things that are going on within the genre I find interesting to talk about, namely that MMOs are no longer truly unique. Other genres have adopted them. Those have become the live service model, and that really grew up out from them. And we've seen games like Destiny come in and then eventually adopt the MMO label, which is interesting. But I think maybe with a huge technical leap, maybe with AI or something like that, that we could have a real impact on making this a reality. But even AI runs the risk of being in a bubble. And if you guys have been following that development, it's interesting to see how the market is currently responding. It was very hyped up for a short period of time in the grand scheme of things, but will it pay off in the end? Well, time will tell. Real world economics is also a huge factor. Also bad actors. And what I mean by that is that you have the likes of EA shutting down Anthem. You have the likes of Blue Protocol getting shut down. You run a huge risk when you invest in a live service game as a player, because the game might not be there for you one day when you wake up and you want to play it. This is a real critical failure of the live service model, because if it isn't successful, these companies are not obligated, obviously, to run these games at a loss. And when we see bad actors, when we see those who go in and essentially find out like, yep, it didn't work out the way we wanted, we're not going to invest any more money. I'm looking at you, EA, namely Anthem. You have this risk in which that it affects the perception of other games. And so when you have a willing population that's on the fence and scared to jump in for fear of losing out or losing that level of investment of time, money, and enjoyment, then essentially you're almost self-fulfilling the prophecy. We're almost in this death spiral as a genre in and of itself. But it's weird to say that, because also the genre and the games that exist are very, very healthy. The other factor here is that the cost of doing business has gone up. This is something where when we've seen how these game companies finance these games, they would borrow the money to pay for them and then essentially kind of hedge their bets that way. They wouldn't really risk their capital. They would borrow money. And with the cost of borrowing money going up, why quite a bit, if you consider it over a short period of time, it's clear that these business models just haven't been working or aren't going to work under this new normal. And what I mean by that is that think about the subscription. I still pay the same price that I paid like 15 years ago for Final Fantasy 14. Well, I pay so much more for everything else in my world right now. And that's what I'm talking about with that economic change. Yes, I'm sure the subscription does help with Final Fantasy XIV's development, but I don't think it has the same impact that it had 10, 15 years ago. And so it makes sense that you see that the monetization outside of that has really driven home what it means to be an MMO. And we're seeing the failure of free-to-play. In fact, any MMO that comes out as that free-to-play model makes me immediately more suspect, because it means they need to bring in and find some big whales to support those who are just there to have fun. Obviously, the goal would be that everybody is contributing maybe $5 or $10 a month. But I think really the solution will end up being that you will see MMOs kind of join their subscription to these various different services. PlayStation Plus, for example, GeForce Now, maybe, for example, you know, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, for example. That's what I'm kind of waiting to see, if we see that change happen in the industry, and thus ensuring that these games get funding on a little bit of a consistent basis. And that's really what this is all about. The ebb and flow of spending in the cash shop isn't a healthy business plan. You want to have that consistent revenue so that you can budget and you can plan accordingly, which will keep people playing your game. And this is what brings me to kind of my final point that I'd like to make in this video before we jump into the message of hope. Namely, if we talk about Lord of the Rings Online for just a little bit. This is the upcoming MMO that's being developed by Amazon Game Studios. Whether it is in trouble or not, we'll have to explore that in future videos. But if we think about what will a new MMO most likely have to do to succeed, is they're going to have to lean hard into nostalgia. They're going to have to lean into established IPs. And that kind of acts as a balm for the players, meaning that as you wait for content, you can lean in on that love of the franchise, of that nostalgia. So that way, if nothing else, you're like, hey, I know it's going to get even better because of how it performed in the past. And so when it's all said and done, I think that's going to be one of the big ways that we see the industry kind of lean into. I'd love to be wrong. I really hope that Ashes of Creation is a resounding success. I'm going to be playing in the alpha this sometime come in November, I believe they've announced, and I want that game to succeed. I want a really good MMORPG that captivates a whole community for years and years to come. But at the same time, it feels that there is this level of almost like South Park. South Park did it best with their Britney Spears episode. We love to build these things up, and we love to cheer as they fall down, and we dance on their graves. And that is the nature of what it means to be an MMORPG fan, at least in the online social perspective here in 2024. All right, that's going to wrap it up for the video. I want to shift over into our message of hope. This is where we talk about the real stuff. We get and we share kind of our experiences over on Ginger Prime. Today's video was about challenging you guys to do something for somebody else that doesn't have any benefit for you. And a lot of people have shared those challenges. We'll be sure to talk about that in a future video over there. Today, I want to talk to you about how the internet isn't real. And you might know that, but it's so easy to see and get caught up in all of the drama and nonsense, and then find out it's just a super minority with a hyper extreme viewpoint that is essentially kind of driving the narrative. So I would encourage you to step away from the internet at some point, to limit the internet at some point. One of the things that I do on my phone is I set windows. I let myself use apps for a certain amount of time each day, and the phone will remind me when I'm getting close to that limit, and then essentially disable the app as soon as I've hit that limit. And this is a healthy practice that I would encourage everybody to consider, just to consider taking on that level of challenge to get yourself a little bit away from the internet and its addiction, because listen, it's addicting. I love the internet. I love making content. I think anybody who's been a subscriber of mine on any of my channels knows that for a fact. So I get the draw, I get that addiction. And so I would encourage you to find some time in the next week to enjoy something in the real world, whether that is just catching up with a friend, calling a loved one, taking a walk, or, you know, I don't know, if you're where I'm in Texas, it's nice and hot, going to the pool, getting a nice cold shower also helps. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging out, and spending some time with me today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully I will see you in the next one. But until then, take care.